Welcome. Think again. It's delighted to see you all here. We've got a few being Zoom. Where's Lisa?
She's getting her brothers.
Okay. So this is Lisa Cannon's home. Dutch church called Bell Hall. Grateful for Lisa ladies be here. And we keep doing it. We'll be here. So and let's go around and there's a few faces I'm not sure about. So let's go around and you can say something like within 1 or 2 sentences that it's on your heart, or you're passionate about, or grateful for, or it's even bugging you. So Mark, I'm gonna start and we'll
So my name is Mark, the same Robin, and it's such a joy to be here. The last time I was here, I wasn't well. I'm here now, and so
It's wonderful. And I'm Maureen, East St. Albans. And Mark is the grower of these tomatoes, and there are more people in here than tomatoes, so. When you leave, I gotta take one.
it's life of the happy and still be.
I'm Karen Salas. I love these circles because I never know what gems I'm going to experience. So I'm just happy to be here tonight. I'm really interested in this topic. Jane.
So many of you know probably what's on my mind, but Jay and I leave for Spain in about 10 days to walk 500 miles of the Camino de Santiago, and we'll be gone for 6 weeks. So we are very excited, and that's kind of I'm immersed in preparations and planning. So yeah.
My name is Tyler. I am passionate about my friends, and Jay and Jane are my dear friends, even though I haven't been here in a long time. It's been more regular years ago, but it's really nice to be here. And I just live here in the Evans, just a few blocks away.
I'm Rick. I've been coming to these off and on for quite a while now. And remember when they had other locations. But I'm kind of interested in things like ecofeminism, so I don't know if you're gonna talk about that or not, but anyway, I felt for a long time that you get this in a lot of literature and movies and so on. They always talk about people feeling disconnected from nature and feeling disconnected from the world, and people understand better how to get reconnected.
My name is Hannah Larson. This is the first time I have ever been to one of these things. Yeah. Am I the first person? I mean, has everybody been here before? Am I the only one who's okay? Okay. Yeah, I'm from Arizona. God recently has been calling me to build a community of people who want to more authentically connect with God in their divine nature. I write about God and people and miracles, and I have a little online community that I strive to help them experience the love of God through what I create. And I am interested in cultivating spaces and experiences for people in person to experience God's love more intentionally. And so this is kind of like a little experiment for me, because I don't know a lot of organizations who do things that are maybe a little bit more non-traditional for spirituality. And I am very interested in that. My demographic, I'm 28 years old and a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I feel very passionately about providing non-traditional spaces for people of faith in my age to experience the radical love of God. And so that's what I'm here to just observe and participate and just love you guys. So thanks for letting me be here.
Could you leave your website somewhere?
But yeah, I would love to. That's so kind of you. Thank you. Yeah, I definitely will.
Yeah.
Yes.
My name is Diane. My brother, as I said, has been coming to these for a long time, and he's lived at my house for about 1.5 years now after my husband died. And this is not the 4th or 5th, I don't know, I've been to several, and these are really nice. Thank you.
And I'm Gwen Salisbury. We've come on off and on, but it's been a long time since we've been, so we're excited about tonight. Thank you. And I'm most excited today about the melons I'm growing because they're getting big and they look wonderful. And we ate one this morning and it was amazing. So I'm into melons today. Yeah, lambkin and cantaloupes and sabas. Yeah.
Very good.
My wife Gwen is my Qigong coach. And that's the first thing that attracted me to this event tonight with Melanie. Thank you for allowing me to be invited.
Should have done this earlier, sorry.
And so happy and grateful to be here. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Julie Keys. I come off and on for the last year. I'm just really excited to be here.
I'm Madison. I run the Zoom.
But you're not passionate about that. What are you
Passionate
passionate
about not having a job. Passionate about not having a job.
Oh.
Which gives him more time to be outside, which he loves to be outside.
There are one, so then look, sport listed as Madison. You know what that is?
No, no.
I'm Tanya. I'm glad to be here again. I'm very excited to experience what Melanie has to share about my body. So thank you and love being in Lisa's beautiful home again.
I'm Carrie. This is only my second time here, but first time my husband was speaking. So, and I was playing guitar and singing over the rain.
Beautiful music, yeah.
Yeah. And I am passionate about Lisa's church and Lisa, I just live up the street, passionate about anything that has to do with faith, God, spiritual transformation. Yeah. Happy to be there.
And I'm Anne Florence, but I'm going by Annie because it makes me feel like a little kid. And I'm passionate about Kamala. And I am losing a lot of time checking the polls about every 15 minutes. And I'm passionate about women runners. I cannot believe how exciting it is to see them. And I am in constant need of transformation. Jen.
I'm Giles Lawrence, and I don't have to check the polls very often because she does.
And what are you feeling passionate about? Or what's on your mind?
Getting here and hearing beautiful thoughts.
Hi, I'm Deirdre. I've been to these before, but it's been a while because my address was in wrong. So I wasn't getting this. But I'm glad to be still invited. I've known Giles for a long time. We worked together with BYU. And it's wonderful to be there. It's beautiful. Oh, gosh.
Wonderful, thank you. Sorry I didn't do this for you guys. Over here is where we started. I didn't think about it. Well, like Jane says, I'm passionate about, I'm passionate because she's passionate about it and she got me involved in it. So I'm super excited. For those of you who are here, I did bring the journal that was in that email that you can write in if you'd like. So I'd love any thoughts that you have, and you can email them also when I'm putting them. But I would like to feel useful, besides accompanying my good wife while I'm here. Right. So as I said in the email, yeah.
He's not there, he would have to keep turning.
That's true.
Say to them.
Okay.
They would
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, anyway, you're invited to write in there a sorrow or burden, joy, prayer, or just write your name. And if you want it to be private, just between you and this one. But I will carry it for a couple of months, and I'll probably take some pictures of it, some sacred places along the way. And I will name you by name throughout. He was gonna be on the top of my list, because I thought he was gonna die, but now he's dropping the bottom, because he's not really helping me. Now I'm talking nervous, that makes me happy. We're still on there, because I don't want to fall back. But yeah, there's people that Jane and I know that are kind of on the brink, struggling to survive. Also, but there's also people like one person wrote me today and said, you know, I have spiritual ailments, I have physical ailments, I have, you know, just like everybody else. I feel guilty. You know, they hadn't even put anything in there. I said, no, it's a person's balance. I had planned the coordination of that event in the journal. Journals came up in like last week or two. With Melanie's presentation, but they actually integrate quite well. Your idea of being in nature, movement, optimism, all that, all the things that you're going to reveal tonight, I think, apply to Jane and I. And it's an adventure. Talk about some adventures. So if you go online, Melanie has a little bio for you if you haven't read it, which is about this topic. Jane and I met Melanie at a retreat in Monument Valley that a mutual friend created to help Native Americans down there, to help fund some personal things they had. That unfortunately, the husband passed away. Earlier this year, just a beautiful Navajo couple that did a lot for the community. And so anyway, I was just fortunate to she did some cool things up there for us during the retreat. Share her talents. I wish you could know these people better. All of them have really interesting life histories and resumes. Meet people. Yes.
Before you introduce more,
Yeah.
just see people on Zoom here.
It's a good idea. So people hear me on Zoom, usually they complain to you or that's something they can't. But thank you.
And when anybody is speaking, if you can just keep your voice up, even though it's good acoustics in here, just don't let your voice drop. So
Thank you. Thank you. Hard time with that.
Thank
you. Yeah, Giles appreciates it. Usually Giles says,
You got her with more.
I know. It's so bad. So bad. It's true. So without any further ado, I will turn the time over to Melanie, and she's got some fun things for us to move, do, and some great stories, and yeah, so we'll take it away and have some fun.
All right, thank you, Jay.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, everyone, and I loved hearing the introductions of everybody, because I feel like we're in a group of kindred spirits, and that means a lot to me. I confess I've never had such an amazing backdrop to everyone, and such a group of people who understand that the days of speaking of the body, the mind, the emotions, and nature as four separate entities are over. So I like to repeat that. The days of speaking of the body, the mind, the emotions, and nature as four separate entities are over. And I'm excited to explore these topics today. So I'm gonna invite everybody to stand up on your feet if you're able. It's Friday, right? And those of us who've been working are like ready to come down a notch in our energy levels. I'm gonna be amplifying mine for this purpose, but like she said, we met on, we took a pilgrimage to Monument Valley to participate in an event that we were invited to. And when Jane invited me to present to you tonight, what was it, 5, 6 months ago? I was in the middle of preparing for my own pilgrimage. I had a milestone birthday a couple months ago. I just turned 50, and I wanted to do something epic for it. And so I did a big hike in Grand Canyon, something that I had not felt well enough to do for about 5 years. And as I rounded the corner on the new year, I was like, I think I feel better again. I think I can get out of physical therapy mode and back into training mode for something. And I wanted it to be a pilgrimage that set the tone for my next decade in life, and it had to be something hard. So, and it was fun, and, I'm glad to get back to that side of myself after exploring a lot of years of healing, which you kind of touched on, and you're welcome back from your stint in that space. So I thought it would be fun, just as a little icebreaker, let's do a little, checking in with ourselves and getting grounded. These are a series of my favorite exercises. When I lead an outdoor fitness retreat, my goal is to move the body in a way that prepares the mind to have a restorative experience in nature. And that's how we're designed, and that's how we're wired, and that's how we got the DNA we're sitting in today, is that our ancestors woke up in the daylight, they walked out wherever they had been sleeping the night before, and they had bare feet on the ground. And we've come a long way from that. And my message is simply that we need to get back to our roots and connect with that energy as much as possible. So from this position, I'm just, yeah, we can go shoes off. We can go shoes off. I feel like I'm gonna be shoes off. Okay. No smelling feet, right? It's about this please. Okay, I'm gonna invite you. It'll disappear. Well, what I want to do tonight is a little bit of movement and a little bit of storytelling, and then, you know, feel free to ask questions, provide input at any time.
So feel free to turn that or.
So everybody at home, there's getting up. This is a Qigong kidney tap. I'm gonna ask you to just gently tap your knees in your back. Looking for that space in your low back, really gentle here. Just kind of windmilling around, and it's the Olympics, right? You might capture a vision of Michael Phelps back in his heyday, standing at the edge of the pool. Bring your arms here. You might not have the wingspan of a Michael Phelps, but you're gonna give yourself a nice little tap behind the shoulders here. Just wake up to that energy. You thought he was nervous, but he was channeling that flow that he was about to explode on the pool. Okay, and then come to a standing space, feet about hip width apart, and just gently shake. Maybe you want to bob on your feet to the point that you can feel your shoulders bobbing up and down. So the inward skier knows this move of trying to get some blood flow to your fingers. And then just stop. And I want you to close your eyes if you're comfortable with that, if you feel safe in that position. Just check in with your body right now, how it feels. Find your breath. Maybe you can inhale through your nose, exhale deeply through the mouth. And as you do that, feel your shoulders drop toward the floor. Find your 10 toes connected to the floor and your feet sinking deeply, and feel how the floor is feeling you back, supporting you. Again, this is a really great exercise to do outside on the ground. And now that you kind of have a check on your body, I'm going to invite you to take an inhale, and as you do, imagine adding length to your spine. What would that feel like from the inside out? This isn't something you may see the results of at the end, but you probably won't. I just want you to feel into it. With every breath, inhaling, adding length to your spine. With every exhale, sinking deeper into the ground. And on your next inhale, I want you to take up some space in the room you're in and expand your ribcage sideways. You can even take your hands to the side ribcage here and feel their expansion as you inhale. Exhaling, you're going to feel your ribcage contract and come inward. You feel your hands come with it. You can feel free to drop your hands if that's constricting. And with every breath, you're adding space, expanding the shoulders. Take one more breath with that same experiment. Releasing tension with your exhale. And with your next inhale, I want you to add depth to your body. So breathe into the front body and the belly and into your back. Believe it or not, your lungs are back here. So you can move that space with using your breath. If you feel a yawn coming on, that's a good thing. That's a sign that your parasympathetic nervous system is kicked in and you're entering a relaxed state. Keep trying to focus on the inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. Creating more space in the low back. Letting your belly expand. There's no need to hold it. Do one more breath in that direction. And on your next breath, I want to invite you to come back to all three at the same time. So you're adding length to your spine, width to your rib cage, depth to the front body and the back body, all in one breath. Hands can work as prompts anywhere you'd like, or they can just float freely by your side. And do that one more time. Experimenting with all three ranges of motion until you reach a space of just gently breathing and checking back in with your body, just taking a beat. How do you feel now? Do you feel like you're taking up more space? Maybe yes, maybe no. I hope you do in some realm. Okay, and then I'm gonna invite you to come back in, bring a little more energy. Then you can do some bobs up and down. Come to a stop, feet firmly on the ground, bring your hands up in front of your chest and create a little friction using your knuckles. Not hard enough that you're rubbing sores, just enough that you really feel it. We're gonna do a couple of seconds here, stay in touch with that breath. So inhaling through the nose. Exhaling through the mouth, and if you can, lengthen the time of your exhale. Breath has a lot of power for releasing anxiety and tension in the body. And in a couple of seconds here, I'm going to do a countdown of 3, 2, 1. We're going to bring our hands so that the palms are facing each other, fingers extended. All right, and 3, 2, 1. Create a little space between your armpits. Feel like your arms are just floating upward. Maintain that space in your spine. And just tune into that space between the hands and the sensations that you just created in your fingers and hands. Now you're going to drop the hands lightly. Keep that space under your armpits as if you're trying to air them out a little bit. Keep your eyes between your hands as if you want to see what's in there. And on your inhale, let the hands expand. And on your exhale, allow them to come back together, and you're going to notice that they're going to reach a point where they're just going to naturally stop. Now I'm going to ask you to check in with your knees and just let them have a soft bend so that you're not hyperextending and there's no tension in the body. Everything's relaxed, and you're going to flow with the rhythm of your own breath here, expanding the hands as you inhale and bringing the hands back together as you exhale. Just noticing where they might want to naturally come to a pause. You can do this with eyes open or eyes closed. And what we're doing here is just checking in with ourselves. Qigong is the original martial art. Qi meaning energy, Gong meaning movement. So we're learning how to work with the energy in our own body, the energy that we can create. And we can come to know how to live in an excited body and a relaxed body. And we can move our bodies in ways that help our brain relax. Now allow your right hand to come to your chest, your left hand to rest by your side. We're gonna check in with our bodies here, literally with our hands, tapping gently with the right hand. Go ahead and move your arm up and over your shoulder. Tapping a little quicker. Now we're gonna wake up that chi in the body, tapping down the arm. Go ahead and turn the hand over, tap up the inside of the body. Back to the heart, and we're going to switch hands, left hand now to the heart, tapping over the body, waking up the chi, sweeping that arm up. Both hands coming to the midline, tapping down the midline, over to the left hip. Now you can bring your hip up to you, or you can bend down, but wake up that chi in the body. I love that sound. Wake up. And up the inside of the right leg, and just do both legs and up the midline again. Now we're back to that right hand, smoothing out the chi. Giving us a chance to check in by touch with our own skin and flesh. Switching hands, left hand coming to the heart, smoothing out the chi down the right arm. Up the inside of the right arm, back to the heart. Down the midline of the body over to the left hip. Again, you can bring the leg up, work on some balance that way, or you can bend over if you're comfortable doing that. We're gonna go down the outside of the leg, up the inside of the leg. Come into the belly with both hands, left hand over the right. We're gonna move in a clockwise direction 3 times. Go ahead and switch hands, right hand on top, and go the opposite direction 3 times. Come to a pause. Go ahead and take both arms up overhead if you're comfortable. Big inhale. Exhale, point those fingertips toward each other. Exhale here. And then relax. And I'm just curious with the group here or anyone online who wants to type a message. If anyone wants to share how you feel now, after about 5 minutes of moving compared to what we started. Checked in. Wonderful. Yes. Less fighting. Great. Thank you for sharing. I feel buoyant. Buoyant, remember. Ready to float, fly, or however you want. I love it. All the way to go. Love that, thank you. I feel more in tune with myself. Thank you.
So it was invigorating and relaxed at the same time. Yeah, that's good.
That.
Increase self-love. Touching yourself. Especially smoothing.
I love this action. I've seen people cry touching themselves for the first time in their lives. It's so powerful, that power of touch, and we know we need it from other people, but we need it from ourselves just as much. Well, what I hope to share with you today, be it at ease if you'd like to stand or sit, is a little bit of my love of the human body. Through interaction with Mother Nature, which is how my spirit has soared in my life. Yeah, I went to some of you may have read my bio on the website or in Jay's newsletter. More and more I come to realize the unique background that I had growing up in Arm, Utah, at the base of Mount Nogays. So every morning I imprinted on that mountain. My father was award-winning life science teacher who had me in science camps for girls from the time I was quite young. And he was a addicted bird watcher, and I was a little protege collecting insects as he was hunting down unique birds all over the state. And the most recent adventure that we had was about 5 or 6 years ago. I had just left a job and gone to one of my favorite places, Lake Powell, and I was standing paddling around and I got a call from my dad saying, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Well, I was like, oh, I'm on my way down, Mr. Boat Captain, there's a blue-footed booby down there." So when I grew up, you know, it was dial tone phones, and my dad every day would dial in there to see where the rare bird sightings were, and he would typically, if he could, he taught AP biology, human anatomy, all those at Provo High School. He was in the car chasing down these wild birds. And he was competing to be the top birder in the state by seeing all, you know, more species in each county than anybody else. So that's how I grew up. And I grew up, you know, with other nerdy kids of bird watchers. And by virtue of doing that, we just lived and breathed and grew to be extremely comfortable in nature, in wild places. And I have to give both my mom and dad a lot of credit for that. At the same time, we were very competitive athletes in my family. And it was not unusual for us to be throwing baseballs as hard as we could at each other in the backyard, breaking windows, you know. I eventually became captain of my softball and volleyball teams in high school, and I very much identified as an athlete. I didn't know how to talk about being a nature girl because it was so innate in me, it wasn't even necessary. Eventually I graduated from college with a degree in human physiology and developmental biology, almost an equal major in athletic training. And when I finished that with that degree, I didn't want to go to medical school or physical therapy school. I had a gap year full of skiing and riding trains in Europe and sleeping in train stations in Morocco. And my dad at one point was like, "Oh, I don't understand why you're throwing your life away like this. You worked so hard to go through college." But that year of traveling, really was very formative for this girl from Utah County who never saw a homeless person, who really didn't experience much diversity, and it created a love for the world in me that has stuck with me ever since. And I share these stories because in my career moving forward, if I haven't got one foot in the outdoors and the other one in the gym, something's incomplete. When you look at the world through a marketing lens, the fitness industry has created a situation where we've been taught we have to go indoors to be healthy now. And it's not just the fitness industry, it's everything. Author Florence Williams has said that the biggest migration ever to happen in human history is the migration indoors. And in this post-COVID era, COVID is still rearing its ugly head, but I think we see that that's not working. And as much time as I spend in the gym training clients, I currently am training for City, Utah. I had about 7 years working in Washington DC, first as an environmental consultant and then as a personal trainer. While I was treating my clients, they found out I was from Utah. I've been a wildlife biologist for a few years in southern Utah. They began asking me to take them on their bucket list adventures. So that's kind of hopefully a little background to set the stage of some things I want to share with you today, and why I firmly believe we need all these components to be optimally well. So again, this is a new format for me. I pulled out some stories I haven't seen in years, and I hope you enjoy them. So first I want to share, this is from my book, Adventures in Mother Nature's Gym. It's technically a course for other fitness trainers to give them the tools to take their clients outdoors. So great, let's train indoors to be strong. There's so many benefits to that. But the missing piece is getting outdoors now, right? So is anyone familiar with Rachel Carson? Excuse me. I think this is a group movie. I'd like to share a quote from her book, The Sense of Wonder. "Those who dwell among the beauties and mysteries of the earth are never alone or weary of life. Whatever the vexations and concerns of their personal lives, their thoughts can find paths that lead to inner contentment and to renewed excitement in living. Those who contemplate the beauty of the earth find reserves of strength that will endure as long as life lasts. There is something infinitely healing in the repeated refrains of nature, the assurance that dawn comes after night and spring after the winter. Can anyone relate? I love this pilgrimage, Jane, the J that you're about to go on. I've had my eye on that for a while, but again, like 500 miles of contemplating the beauty of the earth.
You know, talking about seasons as well. I think, you know, last year you taught, enjoy the transitions from season to season. I lived in South Florida for years, and there were 2 seasons. One was hot, and the other was hot and muggy. And so it's just a nice to see the transitions of life through the seasons. That's all.
Yeah, thank you. We are lucky that way. Lucky indeed. Well, has anyone ever heard of a flow state? Say it again. A flow state. So flow state is what happens, sometimes we call it the zone when you're watching athletes. Right now is a great time to see athletes in their zone, watching the Olympics. But a flow state it really only happens when challenge meets skill level. Or skill level meets challenge. Not enough challenge, skill doesn't matter, you're not going to enter a flow state. That's why an athlete is always going to want to be pushing themselves on, always want to be progressing. You don't have to be an athlete to reach the state. But what we're encountering now is a world that Mahali Csikszentmihalyi, I can't say that correctly, but he is known as the father of flow state. And here's what he said: we do not run risks acting on our beliefs, but occupy hours each day watching actors who pretend to have adventures engaged in mock meaningful action. Woo.
Netflix is really well.
All of things. So I wanted to share some stories about, you know, I got to have a chapter. I've taken a lot of sabbaticals in my career. But maybe when I reach the end, I'll say that wasn't a sabbatical, that was my path, right? And one of those really fun chapters was working as an adventure travel guide after the 7 years in urban Washington, D.C., aka the swamp, completely burned me out. And I couldn't get as far west as possible. So I got into Utah. I spent a month working as a canyoneering guide back in Zion that I love. And then I just kept going and I ended up in Santa Barbara, California. And if anyone's been to Santa Barbara, California, I think it's God's footstool. It's like he said, oh yeah, now look what I can do. I'm gonna create an east-west running mountain range 2 miles in from the ocean, and I'm gonna create eucalyptus trees and limes springing up right next to each other, right? It's just, if you're a nature lover, this is a place you don't want to miss. And I got to spend a year there going flat broke financially in 2009, wondering why I couldn't succeed. When I lived down the street from Oprah and I had literally spoken to her in Washington, D.C., but I couldn't get close to her now. It was an experiment in what abundance really is. So I'm gonna lead into my next story, or my first story, I guess. So while I was going broke in Santa Barbara, the movie 127 Hours came out featuring Aaron Ross. Did anyone see that film? You read the book? Okay, awesome. So, no, okay, it's a no.
She heard his live presentation to his alma mater high school.
Oh, wow.
Where he grew up.
You mean the guy that?
Yeah. Oh my God. For those who couldn't see the symbol here, the guy that just.
The echo.
Aaron Ross.
Yeah, in Colorado, where he grew up.
Wow.
I went to our kids were going to that school. Because we were there for just a short time. And he was giving the presentation and I went to see him, see what kind of a crazy guy would go hiking by himself, but I ended up really thinking he was amazing.
Yes.
He's an amazing human being. Does anybody not know who he is or what?
Oh, is he the one who had to cut off his arm?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's like your spot, and the boulder.
Yes, yes. Oh, yes, I read about that.
So, yeah, I was living in DC at the time, I, already gone through my living in Southern Utah phase, at least first chapter of that, I got to see him present somewhere in the Maryland area, I think when he was on his book tour. Same thing, I have to see the guy who cut off his arm, it's pocket knife.
Yeah.
And so when I was living in Santa Barbara, the Santa Barbara Film Festival premiered the movie 127 Hours that year. And I had a friend who was an editor at the Santa Barbara paper, who I've gotten to know, and I told him this is the story I'm going to share with you now. So a snippet of this was published in the local paper, and then this was from a publication called Carson that somebody saw what I wrote and invited me to share the full story. So I'm gonna skip ahead. So again, for those of you who don't know the story, it's quite terrifying. He was out by himself, hadn't told anyone where he was going. And a big chalk stone that had lodged itself in this slot and moved as he was going over it, wedging his arm between the wall, and he made it 127 hours. And it was a very awe-inspiring as well as terrifying film. So the questions posed by 127 hours are the same ones I started asking when I met Ralston at this time, 7 years ago. How strong is your will to live, and do you have what it takes to be a survivor? Leaving the theater after seeing the movie, my thoughts plunged back to a recent close call, and in the process, my personal answers to those daunting questions became clear. Being trapped by boulders is far from the only way to get in trouble out there. Sudden rainstorms and flash flooding can be just as dangerous. A native of Utah, I was no stranger to desert storms. I'd witnessed my first flash flood as an 8-year-old on a family camping trip to southern Utah's Snow Canyon. My siblings and I were sleeping soundly in the tent above a desert ravine when a terrible thunderstorm struck, creating a torrential river where before there was only dry, red sand. My father coaxed me from the tent in the dark, led me to a safe vantage point, and there let me witness the trembling boulders and enormous tree trunks breaking against each other below. In those terrifying moments, he planted in my heart a deep-seated respect for the power of Mother Nature, one that would bring me overwhelming joy and would also save my life many years later. The summer of 2009 marked my full-time return to the Southwest. 7 years of living on the East Coast had left me aching for the red, earthy hues of home. The great American writer Wallace Stegner, in his defense of the stark beauty that is the West, wrote, "You have to get over the color green." I, on the other hand, could never get over the color red. What better way to celebrate being back where I belonged than to spend a month exploring my Zion stomping grounds? I haven't read this for years. So one day, without a climbing partner and overcome with an irresistible need for backcountry solitude, I decided to spend the day exploring by myself. I picked a familiar canyon and followed all the rules. I told 2 friends where I was going, when I'd be back. I bought my backcountry permit from the Zion Backcountry office. I set up my spot locator beacon to track where I was. And I did what one always does when venturing into a slot canyon. Checked the weather report. With a mere 20% prediction of precipitation and nearly 150,000 acres to choose from, I had nothing to worry about. Wink, wink. I set out in the morning to crank out the 10-mile round trip non-technical route of the lower subway before the late afternoon storms typically rolled in. It was a beautiful day of clear blue skies and 100-degree temperatures, and I jumped in the deep swim holes, took pictures, and caught canyon tree frogs. It was around mile 4 that dark clouds accumulated upstream. I recognized these clouds and I knew it meant rain. I just wasn't sure how soon. Without anyone else to slow me down, I decided to pick up the pace and make a push for my destination. I reached the dark, undulating tunnel of the subway with its deep pools and trickling water, just as the strong wind blew in, carrying with it the unmistakable scent of rain. Just then, a large clap of thunder echoed off the canyon walls. I felt my heart pound and my muscles tense. Without pausing to think, I turned and ran full speed through the tunnel, making my way through the stream and up a sandy bank when another clap of thunder began, followed by another and another, a sound that would haunt me for the next 30 minutes. The smell of rain turned to a downpour, and the dry red ground became a muddy slick within minutes. I thrashed my way through willows, trying to get as far downstream as possible. I needed to get out of this narrow section of the canyon immediately. I crisscrossed the rocky creek carefully, running whenever I encountered solid ground. It was in one of these sprints that I tripped over an exposed root and fell heavily in a face-first body slam to the rocky clay. Picking myself up, I realized that I had been close to panic. As I huddled under the safety of an enormous overhanging wall, drank some water and took a few deep breaths, I considered the seriousness of my situation. It was already raining hard. I still had more than 4 miles to go to reach the exit. And even if the pending flash flood wasn't deadly, I could still easily be trapped here overnight. In no mood to spend the night in the canyon, I mixed a high-calorie energy drink that very important detail. I took a few bites of granola bar and I continued down the slippery slope to the creek. The wisdom of a fellow canyoneer guide rang in my ears. When 100% of the 20% prediction of rain falls in your particular drainage, you do what you have to do to survive. Somewhere under that controlled panic, I came to terms with my mortal condition. I was going to die. I was going to die, and shockingly, I was not afraid. My pleading prayers for deliverance turned to gratitude, and life had never had more meaning. It was time to make my move. Suddenly, I felt dialed in. I was acutely aware of everything: the cold raindrops hitting my skin, the earthly aroma of sagebrush in the rain, and the coarse, slippery mud under my hands as I clawed my way up the steep bank. I felt the individual thump of each heartbeat telling me exactly what pace would keep me from fatiguing too soon. Underfoot, hundreds of juvenile toads scrambled to avoid my crushing feet. Southwestern toads, I thought, unable to escape my training as a wildlife biologist, even now. The 4 miles of river that took me 3 hours to hike up took less than an hour to run down. I made it to the exit route and found a nice high spot to sit. I refilled and drained my bottles while the river was still clear and stretched as I felt the adrenaline rush wear off and the fatigue begin to set in. It had stopped raining down. Nearly an hour passed before the clear running creek turned to a dark chocolate churn and rose by 2 feet in the widest part of the canyon. I made it out safely with a wide-eyed grin of relief, reminding myself why I turned guests on my trips around at the first sign of rain. Travelers seeking an off-the-beaten-path science adventure with me may be aware of the risks, but they depend on me to show them the way. Now, thanks to Danny Boyle's wonderful film and the natural beauty that is Southern Utah, I feel like my long period of self-doubt has ended. I know what it means to live, and I have what it takes to survive. Like Ralston, the canyons are where my mind has registered the most vivid moments imaginable. I've run with the river gods, spoken with Pachamama, and even glimpsed God himself. Perhaps I know what made Ralston do it after all. This was in a publication called Person. I don't think it's still in print, but it was a really cool graphic design type of issue, and they were exploring adventure. So they put the story on it, just a cool graphic design too. So I'm curious, does anyone else have your own encounter with flash flood or survival? Yes.
If I could recommend a hike following Aaron's footsteps down Blue John Canyon.
Really?
It was amazing.
Really? Did you go in after that?
Oh, yeah. In his honor, kind of inspired by his story and having read his book, a group of friends and I followed that path. And it's a wonderful hike that any of you could do if you don't mind rappelling down the 50-foot rock at one point out of the narrow canyon where, you know, the chalk boulders, hold the canyon walls, you know, apart. But it's a beautiful hike and you can do it in just a few hours,
Wow.
as long as you don't get stuck.
I'm glad to hear that, 'cause I have avoided Bujon Canyon. I've flown over it and I'm like, oh, there it is.
No, it's beautiful.
Wow, thank you.
Take friends.
Yes, that's it.
Yes.
It just, yeah, it reminded me a little bit of, we go, all of us oldies, we're all over 50. My cousins and sisters and I. And we go backpacking every year, just as a women power thing we do. And, you know, we went up, we were in the Tetons, we went up Paintbrush and down to Cascade. And we were early enough in the year that there was still snow at the top of the divide. And we came up the first night and we camped, it might have been our second night of camp, I can't remember where. It was our second night of camp and we were going to traverse the divide the next morning, and I woke up in AFib. I have atrial fibrillation. So I woke up in AFib and thought, how am I gonna do this? How am I gonna, I don't want to keep my companions back. We don't want to go back. And I won't go into all the details, but it was a morning of, you know, prayer, meditation and medication and just and a lot of faith and just step by step, just going up. And then you get to the rocky, you know, the sort of scramble part and you're going up to the top. And then there was this path of snow that we had to go across with, like, you know, poles into the mountain here and poles right here, because you only had 8 inches to go across this divide. So yeah, and it is amazing that what comes in those moments is peace sometimes and a lot of gratitude. Because if you think you might be taking your last breath, you know, I suppose there's different ways we could go, but in nature, I feel like it's just a place that inspires peace and gratitude. I was okay. Maybe, yeah.
Cool story, thank you.
Well, yeah. I have both a survival and flash flood experience. Survival, not in nature, but a couple years ago, I moved to Italy by myself to teach English and didn't know anybody, I didn't always been like a life dream of mine to live out of the country, and I hadn't done it yet. And I didn't speak Italian. I moved and I was taking a beginning Italian class when I was there. But surprisingly, to my surprise, I was pretty naive, but the majority of Italians, at least in where I was at, didn't speak any English. And I'm very people oriented. I'm a very extreme extrovert. And so when you talked about kind of, you know, when you were listening to your heartbeat and like kind of about this lock-in attitude or behavior that came when you're like trying to survive, I feel like I felt that a lot when I was in Italy, because it was like, I have to learn everything all over again. I go to the grocery store. I don't know what anything means at the grocery store. I have to figure out public transportation, all these things that made me feel like I was 3 years old again. But at the same time, I felt every single second. And I think that there is something that is so beautiful about that kind of experience that obviously I wasn't in. I mean, sometimes I was in danger with a couple of experiences that I had, but more so like emotional danger, I felt like. But I just, now looking back at that experience, really cherish that, because it really made me center myself on what mattered and really clarified a lot of things for me. So I'm really grateful for that. And then second, I am from Page, Arizona. So I grew up 5 minutes away from Lake Powell, 5 minutes away from Antelope Canyon. I'm obsessed with that area. And I have been in recent years a tour guide at Antelope Canyon. And so we have had a couple of multiple experiences with flash floods, and although we are trained as guides to know what to do to take care of guests, it's super interesting to see when this does happen and you have to evacuate the canyon, how different people go into fight or flight mode and like how you have to, do everything you can to help them feel safe, but also get them evacuated out of the canyon and just to see people's different reactions when they are put under the pressure. So that's all.
Yeah, thank you. What you just said really resonated with me as I was in that canyon, and the guide, he was like, I am so glad I'm by myself right now because I know how to manage myself, but managing that is a whole other thing. And no, thank you. I've done that myself. And who's to say that on another day I wasn't reacting differently, right? I think we do when those moments happen and we find that we're in a flow state, if you will, like the skills that we have are, we're meeting the challenge that we're facing. It's quite, I don't want to, it's a blessing and we've worked to be in that place as well. Thank you. I'm trying to think how much I want to edit this next story. How long do you want to go tonight? Okay, great. All right, then you're gonna get the whole story. So this is another a short story that I wrote for, it's an award-winning experiential storytelling and narrative travel writing website called More Like It's a Trip. And it's created by a well-known adventure travel writer named Ellen Barone, who invited me to share this story. So around this, a couple years maybe after Santa Barbara, I don't remember if it came before or after, but I found myself on another chapter, just trying to stay in Southern Utah as long as I could. I was so happy to be back down there. So I was working as a adventure travel guide / fitness / breathwork guide at a resort called Onigiri, which I think is still the world's most expensive hotel. And it's quite the place, but what I discovered while I was there was that people were coming to that place. It might be what they were accustomed to in terms of connotations. It might have been like a big bucket list they've been saving for, but nevertheless, what they really wanted was an encounter with Mother Nature, and they were coming because they wanted to see like Powell, Zion, Bryce Canyon, these places that they heard about in the Grand Circle, right, the Grand Canyon. So it's quite the honor to be able to spend time with people on that land and share just all kinds of different experiences with them. So this is a short story I wrote called Confessions of a Tour Guide about one of my experiences leading a very special guest. And it started out with a quote from Rumi: "Be grateful for whoever comes, because each guest has been sent as a guide from beyond." I'm sure many of you have heard that. It's a very popular Rumi quote. Ishi and I ascended higher into the silence of a still autumn afternoon on the Colorado Plateau. The wave, iconic red rock remnant of petrified sand dunes, disappeared below us. Twice already we cliffed out, reached dead ends where our path fell away into the abyss below and forced us to backtrack and work another angle. "Are you sure you can get back down?" I spoke slowly to my Japanese guests and gestured to the steep slope we had just hiked. I remained still until I had his buy-in on the route I'd chosen. This had to be a team effort or we would not succeed. We were several hours into the Vermilion Cliffs National Monument, the 280,000 acre geologic treasure on the Utah-Arizona border. There was no room for error, and there would be no alternative escape route should Ichi suddenly trigger a forgotten fear of heights. Ichi took a deliberate look behind him, looked back at me and nodded his head. "Yes, we go on," he said in his quiet, broken English, breathing hard. Ichi had worked hard to be with me on the rock that day, and he would not give up that easily. He made the trip to the Colorado Plateau last year, only to be rained out by summer monsoons and flash floods. Back home in Japan, he diligently entered his name in the online government lottery every week for 10 months, each time paying a non-refundable fee to take his chance at being one of the lucky 20 people per day issued a permit to visit this fragile spectacle of rock. His prized permit in hand at last, Ichi traveled nearly 24 hours to spend 2 days with me, taking pictures of the hidden rock formations few travelers have seen. Melody Arch, the Alcove, and Top Rock Arch. It wasn't only EG I was worried about, it was myself. Though I'd guided the Vermilion Cliffs many times, I'd never been to the specific arches that EG was determined to reach. Land use restrictions applied even to us local guides, and I wasn't allowed into the wave without a client. My pregame ritual of scouting the route to feel connected to the land, know current conditions, and anticipate the challenges of my clients was prohibited. There wasn't even a topo map of the area, for goodness sake. I felt uncharacteristically dubious about my success. Mind you, this was like 2012, there might be a topo now. But hopefully it doesn't show you how to get to Top Rock. Whether what troubled me was mere athletic superstition or my modus operandi as a professional guide did not matter. The idea of leading a foreign client into a remote landscape where 3 people died and a dozen others were rescued several months ago had me on edge. EG seemed sure-footed enough, but what if I couldn't find Top Rock? After all he'd invested to realize his dream, what if I led EG up a steep pitch only to cliff out? Would he consider his trip an epic failure? I wasn't following a trail. There was no trail. Armed with decades of experience in desert exploration and the only verbal accounts I could find the hamburger-looking rock and start climbing to the right. I was left to trust my own abilities, find my flow, and allow the mountain to guide me to her secret places. Mapless, I felt my way up the contours of the slope, cracks and fissures inviting me to take another step here, another there. All right, I said, you wait here while I check out this route. Don't move, understand? Yes, came EG's obedient reply. Stone gave way to endless sky on my left. A vertical wall of sandstone rose to my right. I frictioned with my shoes and scrambled on all fours up a 15-foot long fallen slab in front of me, reached flat ground and looked up, only to be met by the impasse in front of me like a slap in the face. I quickly calculated the hours of daylight remaining, wondering if I had time to descend and try another approach. Not enough time. I had failed. Hands on my hips in defeat, I turned to my right and looked straight through the awe-inspiring eye of Top Rock Arch. Travelers experience this sort of situation all the time, but what I learned that day was a metaphor for life as well. There are times when we can visualize where we want to go, but we don't know the way. Our path may be strewn with obstacles and setbacks, or we simply don't possess the skills to navigate the course on our own. Too often, it is when we are closest to our goal that we are most tempted to turn back and defeat. These are the moments when the Creator, the universe, whatever power you wish to call it, invites us to ask for help, to receive the guides who can assist us in our journey. A great deal of trust and surrender are involved when a person steps into unknown territory to explore the beautiful hidden places that only a wise guide can show them. With the client's offering of trust comes the reciprocity of the guide's utmost care, a responsibility to protect the life of this stranger as well as her own. Together, we are capable of reaching secret places that touch us to the depth of our soul, open our eyes to wonders previously unseen, and realize strengths we did not know we possessed. I picked the lines that delivered my client to his goal that day, but it was EG's undeterred faith in me that sealed our fate. Thank you. EG extended his arm to shake my hand as his Asian dignity and reserve gave way to an enormous smile. I could not have done this without him, he said. No, thank you, EG, for I would not have done this without you, I said. I watched as EG sat under the arch in reverence, silently contemplated his journey. Touched by his humility, I followed the sun to a flatworm rock and sat down, head bowed on my knees. Thank you, I whispered to Mother Earth, who showed me the way. To the Creator for the grace to share EG's journey. Thank you.
Beautiful.
So I'm curious. you know, and we can dedicate some time to, again, to the journey that Jay and Jane are about to embark on, which truly is the spiritual pilgrimage, the original.
Good one.
Yeah, very much welcome. Yeah, true. In Christianity, I don't know where we,
You know, Jane and I were talking about their journey, their upcoming trip. And I just felt like, you know, the pilgrimage you guys are gonna be on is a metaphor for our lives, you know. And so much of the journey is inward. You know, we're traveling, using our legs and looking at things out here, but what makes that so sacred is the journey that we take inward as we take our steps. And I just think that's so marvelous.
And it's one of the things I've been thinking of lately, because Jane's been steeped in this for probably a year, right? Yeah. So typical me, you know, last month, I'm starting to seep into it. I listened to a book called The Art of Pilgrimage, right? Yeah, it's a gorgeous book. Jane's about finished too with it. Did you say something? Pardon? Okay, fine. Anyway, one of the things that I've thought of the last few days is that to make each day a pilgrimage, to look for the sacred and the holy as I travel through my day, to get from one end to the other. Notice, you know, be present and aware, and just make that moment of that piece of my journey, because Ben and I will do it in pieces. We go from hostel to hostel to stay, you know, with a bunch of strangers, but there's no reason I can't incorporate the mentality and attitude of pilgrimage day. So I'm trying to do that right now. I think it's helpful.
Jay, I'll add to,
Yeah.
because I haven't finished the book, but at the end of the book, I don't know if it's his thought or if he's quoting someone, but, you know, he says that if you started a pilgrimage before and you walked around the world, you would still be led back to your own country, which is kind of what you're saying too.
It's that T.S. Eliot quote, you know, where we see, as we come home after a journey, we see our home for the first time. What's it, you know, the quote I'm talking about? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a great Russian story. I have a children's book story very similar. So I'm curious how you guys have sensed in the Melanie and what she shared, what you have found useful in thinking about being in nature and movement. And that's been a big part of my life, all my life. As a trail runner, I can tell you about some euphoric, it's not just a runner's high, but beautiful moments. And I will often take off not knowing what I'm going, which Jane tracks me on her phone. I'm not good at always letting her know, because I don't even know. I mean, I'll just go out the door and I'll start taking off. Here or there, some miles away. I've loved what's come to me. Some of my best ideas and most creative moments have come to me when I'm moving, and sometimes when I'm biking. You know, that happened, or just walking in nature. I've found I feel illumination, sometimes connection with God in those spaces. I don't know if some of you have had that. I know you have. I know some of my friends that I've been with have. You know, Tyler mountain biking, that can happen to us. And Tyler's an amazing mountain bike. He leaves me in the dust. I mean, that guy can flow. Steve Hill and that, it's just fun to watch. But I'd be curious to hear from your experiences. You've had.
One thought that's always occurred to me is just how much we miss from the night sky with our ancestors.
You speak up, please.
Before we had electric lighting, people spent a lot of time during the night sky. They built their structures, monuments and cities based on the coordinates that they got from observing the night sky. And we have kind of lost that sense of wonder about the night, you know, about the stars and the heavens. I think that's good living around light pollution.
Yeah, and then we navigate with the phone, right? I mean, so I mean, they used to.
People forgot that.
Yeah.
So on the other side of that, I've been in Utah for 24 years, but 15 years before that, lived in a rural area. My husband, we had to scratch and claw our 60-mile commute into Silicon Valley every day just to afford the place. But so grateful as we kind of get through all the traffic, we just open up and you could stop someplace and buy, you know, cherries or strawberries or peppers, where they were picking them right there, and you just buy them, bring them home and just relish them. But those, despite a lot of the hard work and whatever being there, the night sky was just thrilled. Just so many stars. Several months of the year, the Big Dipper sat right across the street from me over the apricot orchard across the street, just sat there and just, you know, yay big, and the comets that we saw, the meteors and just the color of the mountains. And I even saw my first, I guess my only, I'm trying to think they call it a cloud bow, a fog bow. It looked like a full rainbow, but there was no color. And I didn't know, some time back I read that there was such a thing, so I thought it was crazy, but just, oh, it was magnificent in that area.
A couple of years ago, we went up to Utah, to Logan area and saw the solar eclipse.
Oh, God.
It was just incredible. And there's a busload of people there from Japan. It was such a bonding thing between us that we were seeing this together. But
It's way cool.
Oh, well, having been a lover of nature and mountains, and I grew up listening to the rhythm of the Pacific Ocean waves. Oh, can't believe that. Hi there, folks. So anyway, skiing, I love the mountains. I became a somewhat of a mountain climber and technical climbing and ice climbing and glacier trekking and that sort of thing. I had to do self-arrest one time, sliding down a very steep pitch of a glacier. It's very scary, but perhaps the most, I'm going to go back to your life and death adventure, because it plays on, it encapsulates in a very short moment in time what I've been thinking a lot about lately is just really, how can I really trust in God? How can I really, what does that mean? And how can I really trust enough to trust? And I've been thinking a lot about that. But when I was younger, our family took a trip down the river rapids of the Colorado River. Now, it wasn't as adventurous as being in your own wooden boat with your rowing your way down there. No, nothing like that. But it's, you know, you have a guide and it's a motorized boat, big giant 35-foot rubber raft, and there's about 20 people on there, and you're all wearing life jackets most of the time, I think all the time. And you don't expect any mishap because these are very experienced guides. But there was this rapid that we were about, we went down many rapids. It was glorious fun. But there was this one called Bedrock that had this huge rock right kind of off-centered from where you want to skirt around it with the boat. Well, the boat was going along and it didn't quite skirt, and it started, the rushing of the water started moving it broadside and pushing us up the face of this huge rock that was about half the height of this building. Anyway, and you're, it's like slow motion, you're being pushed up and you're going, there's no way we're gonna capsize and tip over. And then you're, oh, okay, here it goes. And we're all thrown into the water. But that is a powerful river. You don't, this was not even like a hugely rated a rapid particularly. But because they have a scale, I don't know what it was, 1 to 10 or something. And this was not a 10. But you're put in that river and you don't know. They say keep your arms and legs out so you won't be crashed against the rocks and so forth. But you don't really know when you're going to get popped back up so you can get a breath of air. And you're just in this very raw moment where you're doing everything you can to survive, but it's not in your hands at all. And so I got popped up finally one time and I saw my sister with this dazed look on her face. And I tried to shout to her, but I was pulled back under again. And no one died. And which was very fortunate. And we all survived as a family, but most of the people were helicoptered out, except for my father and my brother and my sister and myself and a couple of other people. And we decided to continue down with this guy. The next rapid was Lava Falls. That's a big one. And we entered it with trepidation, but we were fine the rest of the trip. But I have to say, I've had this feeling that ever since I moved here, I've just had some impressions and feelings about where I'm supposed to go, what my journey is in this building. I don't need to go anywhere else. This is an exciting journey enough as it is in this old beautiful church. And I know I can live up to it. I know I can trust all the way. But I feel like I'm standing on a ledge. And am I willing to jump? You know, are you willing to jump? So I'll leave that with all of you.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you, that was beautiful. Beautiful, and I think it was a really good segue to how I'd like to. Yeah, so, sure. At least close my question and then back over to Jay. And I think this will bring it back to the T.S. Eliot. Was it T.S. Eliot I think we were talking about, and this idea of coming home in a pilgrimage being, and hopefully what I've shared is just again like this idea that we all need nature and God and a commitment. And anyway, so what you just said, I just loved because I think sometimes we're guided and led, but we're like, again, where's this going? I don't know how to get there. So I'm gonna cut this one pretty short and just read the end part, but I at one point ended up working with a client who was a very wealthy woman who had moved from the East Coast to Santa Barbara, found herself in this group of women who were doing things that were way over her head. So all of a sudden she decided to hike Mount Kilimanjaro. She had never camped. She was not a hiker. She had never left her family. She had 2 young sons. They were 10 and 12 at the time. And her husband, Ben, was a friend of mine who I knew from the gym. He was an incredibly successful investment banker, right? And they were in the middle of a house remodel.
in Montecito, and he hired me basically because he was afraid his wife was gonna die. Because she wasn't training for this trip, right? And it was 6 weeks away. So it was an awesome opportunity to step in and just take over. And I got to concierge all, imagine going shopping for gear for a trip like this. You can buy whatever you want. That's awesome.
Were you able to go with her?
Oh, I just did it. Oh, no, I didn't get to go, which would have been the next best thing, but spending all
And
my
keep
money.
all that equipment?
So it was really fun, and I got to step in there, it became a, you know, a strength training challenge, it became a a really fun opportunity in Santa Barbara, especially now, not only did I have the gym, but I had nature to train people for their adventures like this. So at one point, we went to the Eastern Sierra and hiked White Mountain, I believe it's called, the second to Mount Whitney. And that was an adventure. We get to the top, there's, you know, we're way above tree line at this point. She did just fine fitness wise. She's sitting there on this rock, gazing out into nothing, and I'm like, what's wrong? She's like, this is ugly.
Oh.
I'm like, what? Okay, I can't do anything about that. And we went back to our camp and Rich, I was like, you need to know what it feels like to sleep on the ground after working all day and being super tired. Like you are not going to Mount Kilimanjaro until you spend the night breaking in your gear, knowing every single piece of it, and again, like knowing how to camp. Well, at any rate, she wasn't really enjoying this whole thing. And she wasn't sleeping either because her children, again, this was gonna be the first time she'd ever left them. She'd sent them to camp plenty of times, but this was really outside of her value system, is what it came down to. She wasn't sleeping because her children had learned what could happen to you on Mount Kilimanjaro if your lungs don't adapt to this altitude. So at some point I get called into a family council. And I sit down with just her and her husband, and they were really cool couple. They were a Christian couple, and they actually invited me into their family prayer. And we counseled with her and said, look, if you don't go to the doctor and get some sleep meds, like you cannot go in your current state. She started having panic attacks and it was really basically she had every bit of physical fitness to do this, but she was emotionally not cut out for this trip. And as a guide and as a trainer, you never want to see that sort of thing happen, but it's time to be honest. And I just had to reflect back to her, like, look, I really don't want to see you go do this. Have you prayed about this? And that also for me as a professional, that's territory I don't really like to enter. And it's not something that I'll readily share with others, but I find people want to go there. And when I can take people outdoors, it's just this natural human thing to talk about the creation and who we are, regardless of what your religious affiliation is. So I was so honored to have been invited into this space with them in their home, in their sacred space, that I felt comfortable asking them, have you prayed about this? And she said, yeah, I've been praying and I just feel so anxious and I just feel so like, oh, like, you know, she's not sleeping. I was like, well, I think you have your answer. And I was able to reflect back that this wasn't who she is. Like, she's fallen into this crowd of women who do this sort of stuff, but what she really values at this time in her life was being a mother, was being with her sons. And I was able to say, look, like you're in the position, you'll do this with your boy 10 years from now. Why don't you just save it and enjoy that? And you know, if they slept on it, she slept that night and realized that was probably the right thing to do. And she was at peace because she honored her values. And to this day, I consider that the greatest trip that never happened and one of my biggest career successes. And so to bring it home again, the day of speaking of the body, the mind, the spirit, and nature, it's 4 separate entities are over. I just want to
reiterate that, and, thank you so much for sharing this sacred space with me and your sacred space with us. And Jay for the idea and inviting me to share some of my fun times in life. I like to call a lot of them misadventures. It means a lot to me to be able to talk at this level. Thank you.
Oh, it's so good, thank you.
I just want to say not to distract, but that white rainbow I saw was 30 years ago. I didn't even know what to call it. I was alone in the car. But you know, it's pre-internet. Finally, when you talked about fog, when you can look it up, you can see. White rainbow.
I believe you. Now we can look at the phone.
Anyway, it's weird.
Well, it's been a delightful evening. Thank you, everyone, for being here, participating. I love how we began and those things all connected. I know in my own life, the better I tend to my physical self without being. I'm not a guy that doesn't go to the gym. I'm that tired and smokes and stuff. I'm maybe I'll do that kind of stuff. So I just do it by myself. So that's anyway, you know, and you know, I grew up without a lot of money. My dad didn't do big vacations. So, you know, since I've married Jane, we've had, well, even only recently, the last 2 years, we've had some big vacations. We had a couple twice in like 42 years of marriage before this last 2 years in Europe.
But you're talking to all of us?
Well, I'm just saying that I had a car, you know, that's right. Like your clients and stuff are kind of out of my range of imagination of what they can do financially and otherwise. But we live in a place where you can experience wonders.
Yeah.
I mean, amazing wonders here. I mean, we've got the Wasatch Range here that's just gorgeous. To hike in, we've got the national parks, and it's remarkable to me how many times I run into people from Utah who have not been to any of the national parks.
It's very sad.
You know, I mean, people pay huge amounts of money to come, busloads of Japanese people. And I've been, you know, when we've been down in southern Utah, busloads of people are paying lots of money to see what we live next door to. So I would just encourage you to get out. You know, I mean, you don't have to run, you can walk, but spend time. You can be in your yard, right? You know, you spend some time in your yard with your beautiful flowers and things. It just, I know for so many of us it feeds us. And then the plants that we take in, like Diane, when you talked about picking the or inviting the cherries and stuff straight from the farmer. You know, we've become disconnected to where our food comes from and how it is made, how it's grown, all the many hands that touch that food, so that we can enjoy it from all over the world. So I just encourage us to spend time thinking about those things, and it'll make our lives, I think, a little more holy in both senses of the word, sacred and complete, and it'll make us healthy. So with that, I'll shut up and wish you guys a good night. Thank you.
I just wanted to share that it speaks.
Well, we shall not cease from exploration. And the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and to know the place for the first time.
Thank you, everyone. You're welcome to put something in our journalism and take with us. Or if you want to hand me an object, I'll carry that too. What? Thank you. I don't know. I'll have to train with Melanie.
There we go.